Te Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today I will be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 49, text number 29. Yo durvimarsha pathaya nijamaya yedam. Yo durvimarsha pathaya nijamaya yedam. Shrishva gunan vibhajate tadanu pravishta. Shrishva gunan vibhajate tadanu pravishta. Tasmai namo durvabhoda vihara tantra. Tasmai namo durvabhoda vihara tantra. Samsara chakra gataye parameshwaraya. Samsara chakra gataye parameshwaraya. Yo durvimarsha pathaya nijamaya yedam. Shrishva gunan vibhajate tadanu pravishtaha. Tasmai namo durvabhoda vihara tantra. Samsara chakra gataye parameshwaraya. Chakragataye parameshwaraya. Yo durvimarsha pathaya nijamaya yedam. Mothers, word to word meaning. Yah, who, durvimarsha, inconceivable, pathaya, whose path, nija, by his own, mayaya, creative energy, idam, this universe, srishtva, creating, gunan, its modes, vibhajate, he distributes, tat, within it, anupravishtha, entering, tasmai, to him, namaha, obeisances, durvibodha, unfathomable, vihara, of whose pastimes, tantra, the purport, samsara, of birth and death, chakra, the cycle, gataye, and liberation, coming from whom, Parama Ishvaraya, to the Supreme Controller. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. I offer my obeisances unto Him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who creates this universe by the inconceivable activity of His material energy, and then distributes the various modes of nature by entering within the creation. From Him, the meaning of whose pastimes is unfathomable, come both the entangling cycle of birth and death and the process of deliverance from it. Purport. When all is said and done, Dhritarashtra was not an ordinary person, but an associate of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Certainly an ordinary person could not offer such a learned hymn to the Lord. We are also covering today this chapter by reciting text 30 and 31. So I'll just say it myself. Shri Shukha Uvacha iti abhipretya nirprater abhiprayam sayadavaha suhurdvi sam yunjataha punar yadu purim agat. Translation. Sukadeva Goswami said, having thus appraised himself of the king's attitude, Akrura, the descendant of Yadu, took permission from his well-wishing relatives and friends and returned to the capital of the Yadavas. Text 31. Shashamsa Rama Krishna Bhyam Dhata Rashta Vichashtitam Pandavam Prati Kauravya Yad Artham Preshtas Swayam. Translation. Akrura reported to Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna how Dhritarashtra was behaving toward the Pandavas. Thus, O descendant of the Kurus, he fulfilled the purpose for which he had been sent. Thus ends the purport of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada to the 10th canto, 49th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Akrura's Mission in Hastinapur. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalokya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So here it is said that here it is the conclusion that how Dhritarashtra is not an ordinary person, definitely. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is in relation with Dhritarashtra. His father is Srila Vyasadeva, the literary incarnation of the Lord. And he is in relation with the Mahajan Vidur, his brother Mahajan Vidur. He is also in relation as a cousin for all the Pandavas, and he hails from a very virtuous family. So he is also at the same time a virtuous person with good qualities. But due to some inconceivable fate, some arrangement of the Lord, that he is also the son of Duryodhan. So it is said, like, sweet rice made me made very nicely, but if in that sweet rice you get some grains of sand, everything gets spoiled. So it's something like that. If you may be of very good qualities, but one small defect can cover up the entire good qualities. So just being the son of Duryodhan and his attachment towards his son led everything to a destruction. As we understand from the historical events that how Dhritarashtra, he was very attached to Duryodhan. It is said that when Duryodhan was born, he was not crying, but he was braying like an ass. He was very attached to his son. He was told by Vidura that it's better you kill this son, but he didn't had that daring. He didn't. His heart couldn't. He was very attached. He couldn't do it. If we go through the historical events, actually, Maharani Kunti was, she gave birth to Yudhishthir Maharaj. It was a divine arrangement by the order of Pandu and the mantra which she had received from Durvasa Muni that she could beget the child. So Yudhishthir Maharaj was born the eldest, the first in that. And at the same time, on the other side, if we see, Gandhari, the most chaste lady, she was also pregnant at the same time. We see Gandhari is an emblem of chastity. Her life is quite exemplary, especially when it comes to chastity, because when the arrangement was done that she had to get married to Dhritarashtra, and as a Vedic tradition that a wife, she is always subservient to the husband. And she never is very proud about, what special quality she has. But she always feels herself as a subservient to her husband. She always feels as a menial servant to the husband, serving the husband. So here, Gandhari, when she came to know that her husband is blind, so instead of she feeling proud about, that she has eyes, she blindfolded herself with a cloth so that she even could not see the light of the day. That was the level of her chastity, that was the level of her surrender to her husband, which she served like a master. And because of this power of her chastity, she received a lot of power, because we know by performing any kind of austerities, just like if one performs properly the austerity of brahmacharya, one is endowed with lot of power by the Supreme Lord. So similarly, Gandhari also was empowered by a lot of power because of her chastity, especially her eyes had that power. We know as the events go by during the war, when it was the last moment, she had called Duryodhan, and she told Duryodhan that you come in front of me completely naked, no clothes at all. And we know as he took bath, as he was coming Who met him? Shri Krishna met him. And Shri Krishna, he changed the whole thing. He said, Hare, what is this? I understand your mother cannot see, but that does not mean, you go like that in front of your mother, especially when you are now a grown-up son. So at least, cover up that private part, at least cover up that part and don't go like that. So he went, he thought, okay, yeah, Krishna is saying he's right. I cannot just go like that. So he just covered the lower part of, and he went in front of Gandhari, and then she just flipped over that cloth and she looked at him, and wherever she looked at on his body, wherever eyes fell on his body, his whole body became like a vajra. Nobody could destroy it, just like a vajra it was. But then she was very surprised that he had covered the lower part of his body below the waist. And then she asked, what happened? I told you to come completely naked. Why did you wear that? He said, I don't know. I also thought like that, but Lord Krishna met me on the way and he gave me that instruction that, it is not right to go in front of the mother like that. So then immediately she understood that, if Lord Krishna doesn't want you to be protected, then who can protect you? If he wants your destruction, and he arranged it, she understood how he arranged it, how he tricked him into it. And if he wants your destruction, then who can save you? Even I cannot save you as your mother. And then we see the events later. So she was quite powerful because of that chastity. Even we see at the end of the war when Yudhishthira and the Pandavas had come. Actually, Pandavas were not fearful of anybody, but they were very fearful of Gandhari because they knew the power of her chastity. They were extremely fearful of her. That's why when after the whole war happened and they came along with Lord Krishna, they were completely surrendered to Lord Krishna because they knew only Krishna can save them from the wrath of Mata Gandhari, because they knew the power of her chastity, that if she puts that angry vision on them, they can be burnt at a moment and she can convert them to ashes. But by Krishna's will, it was reduced. She only looked slightly, she just looked at the fingers of Yudhishthira Maharaj and they were burnt. So that was the power of her chastity, that she, that she accepted that austerity just for husband. So actually when she heard that Kunti Maharani gave birth to the child, she was very upset because all the time she was thinking that my child will be the first. So if my child is born first, then definitely he gets the authority for ruling. He gets the authority to sit on the throne first. But when she heard about Yudhishthira Maharaj being born to Kunti first, she became in utter frustration. She immediately, with a fist, she started beating on her womb. And what happened, we know, is that a lump of mass came out. And then Maharishi Vyasdev was called there because he's the grandfather. So the grandfather, please do something about this flesh. What can be done now? Because Dhritarashtra actually was already prophesied that he will be the sons of 100. He will be the father of 100 sons. It was already prophesied. So something had to be done about it. So then Vyasdev was called, and Vyasdev, by his power, he distributed it into 100 pieces and put them into pots and kept it for some time, and then the children were born out of it. And there were a lot of inauspicious omens when Dhritarashtra was born, and he was being told by Vidura, don't, you kill this child, especially this first child, at least you kill this first child. But he was not ready because he had a lot of expectations from that child. Especially his expectation he was seeing through the son. So he was not ready to kill that Duryodhana. And we understand that it was Duryodhana only because of which the entire dynasty was ruined later. That is the ill effect of attachment towards something very wrong. Attachment towards the Supreme Lord, attachment towards His devotees, raise us upwards. But attachment towards such false hopes will always get you down into material world. So we understand as the events then proceed that how Dhritarashtra, actually Vidur in this chapter itself, as we have gone through, Akrura, he came at the very beginning only. He had told Akrura not to keep the child, but even that time he didn't have the courage to kill. He was weak by heart. And even now we see Akrura had come to warn Dhritarashtra. He's just telling him, he's not demanding much. He's just telling him that you are the eldest of the Kuru and you are now the king after Pandu has passed away. So at least now, being the eldest, and these Pandavas, they are looking towards you as just like a father, because they have lost their father. And now you have given them shelter and they are looking towards you as a father figure. So at least do one thing, that you see both of them equally, their Pandu's sons and your sons. At least you do that. At least see them equally. That's what he was asking for. And then he's saying him a lot of nice instructions. Yeah, he says him, oh, a fool indulges in sin to maintain his life, wealth, children, other relatives, for he thinks these things are mine. In the end, however, these very things all abandon him, leaving him frustrated, abandoned by his so-called dependents, ignorant of the actual goal of life, indifferent to his real duty. Having failed to fulfill his purposes, the foolish soul enters the blindness of hell, taking his sinful reactions with him. Therefore, O king, looking upon this world as a dream, see, Vidur is giving such wonderful instructions to Maharaj Dhritarashtra, that looking upon this world as a dream, a magician's illusion, or a flight of fancy, please control your mind with intelligence and become equipoised and peaceful, my Lord. He's telling him to be equipoised. He's telling him, don't get illusioned by this flight of fancy. Don't think that, the evil plans of Dhritarashtra, by supporting the evil plans of Dhritarashtra, that one day you can put him on the throne and, you can reign over the whole kingdom with proper dharma. It's not possible. So again and again he was warning. But Dhritarashtra, even then he was not ready to listen to him. And he was saying that I can never be satiated while hearing your auspicious words. Indeed, I am like a mortal who has obtained the nectar of the gods. Even so, gentle Akrura, because my unsteady heart is prejudiced by affection for my sons, these pleasing words of yours cannot remain fixed in there. So he's saying that he understood very well what actually Akrura is trying to tell him. But still he is saying, Akrura, that no, your words are not staying in my heart. Just like lightning cannot remain fixed in a cloud, your gentle words cannot stay in my heart. I know what you're saying is right, but still, because of my prejudiced affection for my sons, it is not possible for me. Who can defy the injunctions of the Supreme Lord, who has now descended in the Yadu dynasty to diminish the earth's burden? So he understood, he very well knows Lord Krishna to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He understood why the Lord has descended. He very well knows the Lord has descended because he is now going to wipe away all the irreligion from the world and going to establish religion. And he very well knows Dharmaraj Yudhishthir is the emblem of religion. But still, he knew very well that his sons, especially headed by Duryodhan, are following irreligion. But still, he had to support them. because of his affection. And thus he concludes in this today's verse, he is concluding that who I offer my obeisances to him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who creates this universe by the inconceivable activity of his material energy and distributes the various modes of nature by entering with the creation, within the creation. From him, meaning of whose pastimes is unfathomable, come both the entangling cycle of birth and death and the process of deliverance from him. So he understood that actually the Lord is the source of everything. And the Lord itself will decide, who will stay, who will not stay, and how this samsara chakra of birth and death has to revolve, and who goes up and who goes down. Everything he knew very well, but still, blindfolded by the affection for his sons, he just supported all their evil deeds. Krishna personally also approached Dhritarashtra, and he warned him. He told him that, okay, I am the Supreme Lord and everything belongs to me. But still I am pleading you just offer 5 villages to the 5 Pandavas. Because it's their swadharma that they are Kshatriyas. They cannot just live like that by begging. They are Kshatriyas, so they need to live by administration. So at least offer them 5 villages, nothing but just 5 villages. Rest, all that is theirs, but you can keep it, no problem. But at least offer them 5 villages. But what did Dhritarashtra Maharaj said? No, coming in, he looked upon Duryodhana, and Duryodhana said, no, I am not ready to give even that much land which will hold the tip of the needle. Imagine the level of enviousness, greed. The Supreme Personality of Godhead personally is coming and pleading just for 5 villages. The proprietor of the entire creation is coming and pleading in front of Dhritarashtra, which he knows that he is the Supreme Lord, the creator, the maintainer, the destroyer of everything, but still he is not ready to succumb to it. He is still not ready to hear the good will of the Lord. And that is why because he was very attached to his son, that lead to destruction of the entire dynasty. Such attachments are very, very dangerous. Family togetherness, family attachment, family, the bonding between the members of the family, in itself it is not wrong. In itself it's not wrong if it is directed towards the service of Lord and his devotees. The bonding between the family members, together they come together, they stand together in service of Lord, in the service of the Vaishnavas. In itself it is very good. But when such attachment is not directed towards the Supreme Lord, when in the family the central point is not service of the Lord and the Vaishnavas, but the central point is selfish motives, material selfish motives, then destruction is inevitable. This is what is seen in Dhritarashtra's case. Because he was very much infatuated and intoxicated, especially Dhritarashtra Maharaj and Duryodhan, after they played that game of dice and they took away everything from Yudhishthir Maharaj and they were exiled to forest. He was ruling practically everything. Everything was under him. But still he was not satisfied. That was the level of envy and greed which he possessed. He was not satisfied. Krishna, before the battle took place, Krishna himself had come, but still they were not ready to hear Krishna's goodwill. So finally, when the battle had to take place, we know that Bhim had taken that vow that I will kill all the 100 Kauravas. That's why everybody was very careful in the battlefield also, that anybody happened to come face to face with any of the Kauravas, they had to leave them. They couldn't kill them because they very well knew the pratigya of Bhim, that he said that he will kill each and every son of Dhritarashtra. All the 100 sons were killed by all alone Bhim. And it was like, Bhim was very, very terrifying, because it was not that easy. He used to kill them with, used to just tear apart their bodies. And with great anger he used to do that. And especially Dushasan, we know, he tore him apart, he took out his heart, and he was drinking blood. That was the level of his rage. We can think, somebody may think how pure devotee can be like that, drinking blood. But that's how Kshatriyas were, That was their Swadharma. They were like that. They were Kshatriyas. They were not. So sometimes, yes, like that. Sometimes pure devotee also can act in such a way also. So he drank the blood of Dushasan, and he ripped apart all of the Kauravas. He killed each and every of those 100 sons. And at the end, when the only thing which was, with which they were really terrified was facing Gandhari. Because they knew Gandhari, the power of all chastity, they knew very well. That was the only fear. Otherwise, they didn't fear anybody, Pandavas. Only one they feared was Gandhari. So Bhim was the one who actually smashed everyone. At the last point, when only who was left was Duryodhan. And Krishna only knew what has happened. Why? Because in the match between Bhim and Duryodhan was very skillful, because he was being taught personally by Balaram. So he was very skillful, and Bhim was very powerful. So both in the match couldn't defeat anybody. So finally Krishna had to give him that hint that no, you hit him below the waist, which was completely unethical and unacceptable in the war of, in that war. But still the Lord said, no, you do it. So just because the Lord told him to do it, that is why Bhim agreed, because he knew Lord is he is the father of dharma. He knows what is dharma, what is adharma. And if he's telling me to do it, means he only knows why he's telling me to do it. So I just have to follow it and I have to do it. So he just flipped him up, and when he came down, he just smashed him on the lower part of his body at the thigh region. And he was writhing in pain. He was almost as if, he was supposed to die, but he couldn't die. He was writhing in pain. And Lord Balaram, at just that moment, he just appeared there, and he was opposing this. This is completely unacceptable. How you, knowing the wrestling match rules, you still, you hit Duryodhan with that mace of yours. And that mace of Duryodhan is not of Bhima is not an ordinary mace, because with that mace he used to enter into the infantry of the elephants. There was groups of elephants together on which these soldiers used to be on, and they used to fight from the elephant with the elephants. So he used to just enter into that infantry, and with that mace he used to kill thousands of elephants like that. So that was the power of his mace, and with that mace he hit strongly at the thigh region of Duryodhan, and he just left him for dying. And Balramji, looking at him, because he was his disciple, couldn't take it. So, but Bhim was, the moment Balramji appeared on the scene, Bhim just completely surrendered to Lord Balaram, and he just could, because he knew that nobody can stand in front of Lord Balaram. Many tried to stand like that, but nobody could win Lord Balaram. So he just surrendered unto Lord Balaram that, okay, whatever you wish. And then because he's a surrendered soul to Krishna, so Krishna immediately, was ready to save him from even the wrath of Lord Balaram. And we see how the Lord, he is telling Lord Balaram, why are you thinking about, fair and square game now? Don't you remember in the name of birthday gift, birthday cake, he fed him poison? How he, in the match of dice, through Shakuni, he cheated all of them, and how he took away all of their property and everything. So where was your fair and square game that thought that time? So like that, Krishna also saved Bhim from the wrath of Lord Balaram. And in this way, the Lord said, it's my divine arrangement, don't get into it, you continue your pilgrimage, you just go on your yatra as you were, because Balaramji was on a yatra, he was not part of that war. So he just said, continue your yatra. So that's how Bhim completely destroyed all of those. So at the end, when they happened to go in front of Gandhari, she just slightly looked upon, it was Krishna's arrangement, she looked at Yudhishthira Maharaj's hand, and his hand got burned. And we also know how Dhritarashtra also was, imagine Dhritarashtra, 100 sons, every day he is hearing, because he is in the courtroom and Sanjay is, giving him the live recording of everything that was happening, all the events which were happening on the battlefield. So every day he is hearing each of his son getting killed by Bhim. How he must be feeling, because he was very attached to his sons. So it was not easy for him to take it. And one by one, every day he is hearing, so many of his sons getting died in the battlefield by Bhim. He was completely in rage, and we know, after the battle when they came to meet, and then Dhritarashtra wanted to, embrace Bhim, and by Krishna's, again there also Krishna saved him by telling him, no, you put forward, because there was this one effigy of Bhim, which Duryodhana had built, and he used to every time hit that, as a practice with his mace. And he just said, you put that forward. And when he put that forward, we know Dhritarashtra just embraced that. It was made up of iron, but still he could crush it completely into pieces. That was the power of Dhritarashtra. But just see the attachment towards his sons, and knowing the irreligiosity being supported by his sons, he supported them in all the irreligious and unfair means by his sons, and that's how it all came to ruination. But the main point is that Krishna didn't wanted it. Krishna wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj to be established, and that's how Yudhishthira Maharaj was then finally crowned on the throne. So in this episode we understand that how, this is the last part where Akrura finally, after understanding the entire arrangement, that how he's giving him he's giving him his good instructions, but still he understood that Dhritarashtra, he's not going to hear anybody's good instructions, and he's going to support his evil sons only. And finally he understood that that will only happen what Krishna and Balaram wants. So he just took the message, he just understood the entire scenario, and he went and gave the message to Krishna and Balaram that how this entire scene is, and how Dhritarashtra Maharaj is completely blind. He is not just blind by his eyes, but he is even blind by his affection. And in that affection, he is ready to support all the nefarious, irreligious activities of his sons. And how Pandavas are been suffering in their rule. How they have to go through unfair means, how many times they had to face death in their plotting to kill them. So anyway, I'll stop here. If anybody has any comments or questions, then you can ask.
हरे कृष्ण। प्रभु प्रपोट में पहला पढ़िए, पहला जो श्लोक का प्रपोट में है
आज का purport. When all is said and done, Dhritarashtra was not an ordinary person, but an associate of the Supreme Lord Krishna. Certainly an ordinary person could not offer such a learned hymn to the Lord.
तो ये जो प्रपोट में लिखा है, व्यासदेव जो अभी कंसो कर रहे हैं, प्रभुपाद जी जो लिख रहे हैं, क्योंकि अभी जो प्रभु जी ने सुनाया, वो जो कुछ सुनाया वो सिर्फ उनके फॉल्स के बारे में, उनकी गलती के बारे में, क्योंकि 1000 लोगों ने उनको समझाया, कृष्ण ने समझाया, 1000 लोगों ने, इस लोगों ने समझाया, विदिन भगवान ने समझाया, सब लोगों ने समझाया कि इसको मारो, इसको काटो, इसको छोड़ दो, क्यों कुछ भी करो, ये लड़का जो है बहुत खतरनाक है, तुम्हारा परिवार का नाश करेगा। लेकिन ये नहीं हुआ। लेकिन अंत में वो लिखते हैं, वो प्रपोर्ट में लिखते हैं, इज ग्रेट पर्सन। क्या लिखते हैं, फिर से पढ़ो, जिन सुनो ध्यान से।
Yeah, it is said that Dhritarashtra, he was not an ordinary person because he was associate of the Supreme Lord. He was not an ordinary person. But certainly an ordinary person could, because certainly ordinary persons cannot offer such a learned hymn to the Lord. So he was not an ordinary person. He was he very well knew that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead.
इसलिए कभी धृतराष्ट्र के बारे में गलती नहीं समझना चाहिए। ये एक पात्र है, एक भगवान ने डिसाइड किया हुआ एक पात्र है। और जैसे कोई अब ड्रामा करते हो या कुछ करते हो, तुमको जो रोल दिया वो रोल करना है। तुम नहीं समझो कि ये मेरा भाई है, इसको कैसे फाइट मारूं। भाई हो चाहे कोई हो, तुमको मारना है। तो सेम लाइक पात्र है। इसलिए वह परपोर्ट में लिखा है कि वो ग्रेट पर्सन थे, वो सबसे बड़े एफेक्शन थे, कृष्ण के भक्त, वो सबसे पावरफुल भक्त थे। इसलिए भगवान ने उनको वो पात्र दिया था। हरे कृष्ण।
That means we should not criticize the action of Dhritarashtra.
No, I am not criticizing Dhritarashtra. What I am trying to say is, Dhritarashtra was from a noble family and he was a very virtuous person. But by providence, he was also the father of Duryodhan. And that was, that one thing, covered up all that virtuousness which we had. Because he always, though he knew everything, but still he supported Duryodhan in all his nefarious activities. So that is the point which has been talked about, that because of his attachment towards his sons, which was not that attachment was not for the service of Krishna, but that attachment led to fulfilling all the irreligious acts of Duryodhan. So that's how it went wrong.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Hemgiri Prabhu, for a nice, elaborate, connected pastimes being explained about Dhritarashtra. But he did mention in the class that having attachment to the family is not wrong, but at the cost of devotional service is very dangerous. He mentioned in the class. In fact, all the personalities in Mahabharata and Ramayana, the information is that they are all eternal associates of the Lord, but the teachings is their pastimes. That how, like even Bhishma is a pure devotee, and Prabhupada writes in the purport that one way the Lord is performing his pastime, Viraras, Second thing is, he's also teaching that even if you are my devotee, if you're at the wrong side, I cannot help you. Prabhupada writes in the purport. So there are a lot of teachings like this. In fact, in this pastime only little later, Akrura will meet Dhritarashtra and preach to him. What you're doing is very wrong. And Dhritarashtra will tell that, I know the Supreme Lord is personally there and he is going to destroy all the evil. But this remains in my mind only as much the thunder remains in the sky. And then Prabhupada writes there, that is the result of material attachment. So that's the essence, what a false identification and material attachment can lead to us. So you beautifully explained that. Thank you.
Because this attachment is because of the skin disease. If there is a family bondage and the center is Krishna, then it's all right. But when this attachment is based on skin disease, then it is a problem.
Dhritarashtra also got a great opportunity because he is associated a pure devotee like a Vidura. And in the end of life he followed the instruction of Vidura and he went in the bank of Ganga and by his instruction he performed pure devotional service. Haridwar Saptarshi, bank of the Saptarshi. And by the instruction of pure devotee, he performed great devotional service and he burned the fire in his own body and burned his body in ashes. I begotten the spiritual about of Lord Krishna. Rasraj Prabhu also 3 days back he explained that Dhritarashtra is achieved the abode of Lord Krishna because he was a great devotee. Dhritarashtra.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
why the great devotee is acting like a demons? Because these are the only the will, maybe the will of Lord Krishna.
Yeah, the inconceivable will of the Lord, that Duryodhana is born to him and he is very attached to Duryodhana, but at the same time he was very attached to his brother Vidur also. So that is why Vidur could timely come and correct him also. And there the attachment led him, to go up. But with his attachment to his sons, everything got ruined. But there his attachment was very helpful for him. That helped him to progress in Krishna consciousness.
And once somewhere mentioned, when Lord Krishna went in the palace of Hastinapur for the mediation between Pandava and Kauravas, so Lord Krishna didn't want to mediation between Pandava and Kauravas because Krishna want fight. Because he comes, his mission was Paritranaya Sadhunam Vinasaya Chaduskritam. Krishna mission to kill all the demons. So that mission will not fulfill if mediation comes. So that's why he appeared in the mind of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana also. He gave forgetfulness.
No.
Lord Krishna desires.
Yeah, finally that only happens what Krishna desires.
Didn't settle with both family. Krishna desired to fight, comes in the battlefield, and all the demons all over the earth, they should appear there and easily I can kill. Without any fear. Just all the demons in the all over the world all together appeared and Krishna easily killed. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj, for your guidance.
Hare Krishna, bro. So I have one question. So is Dhritarashtra's attachment his own wrong, his own anartha, or is it the Lord's will? Because the whole arrangement had to be done. So if he didn't, if he listened to Vidura and purified his anartha, means, so it was his anartha, or was it the will of the Lord that he was so attached to
Both.
his sons?
Because all those instructions, if you see, when he was talking about when Akrura is telling him the good instructions, he's saying all that I understand. Even when Lord Krishna personally had gone with that plead to give only 5, that time also Dhritarashtra was telling Lord Krishna that all that you are saying, I am understanding. But what to do? I am attached to my son. And my son is not ready to patch up. So at the same time, as Maharaj is saying, that it is the will of the Lord that all the irreligious kings has to be brought together, and at one point of time only all the irreligious kings has to be killed. So that arrangement also has to be done. So in one way, it was the Lord's arrangement only that that Duryodhana behaves like that, and he doesn't accept to patch up at that point of time. So it's both the same. It's both. That attachment also is at the same time anartha, at the same time it is the Lord's will that yes, he doesn't agree, and then all the irreligious people come together and they are all finished at one point. This side.
Hare Krishna. Very nice class, Guruji. Just want to add one comment and then will be one question of mine. Yes, the pastimes we understand from Srimad Bhagavatam has a different level of understanding. Like sometimes we have to critically evaluate a particular character so that we can imply some teachings to others. So many a times Srila Prabhupada also have done and many acharyas also done. So it was a very nice detailed explanation. And question is that you have mentioned that for a male practicing brahmacharya, Lord will invest some exceptional power in him. And for a female or for a woman, chastity is very important. Now there are some pastimes like where the Brahmana's wife who are not listening to their, or without the permission of their husbands, they went to see Lord Krishna or went to serve Lord Krishna. Also we see like in Gopis pastimes also, they don't listen to the family and they go to meet Krishna. So if from a view of Krishna consciousness, how we can see how much chastity is important for a female, and when it comes to contract situation like there is no support from the family members, so how to deal with that?
We break a lower principle for a higher principle. That's the point. Of course, we have to know where can we break, but yes, for keeping up a higher principle, a lower principle can be broken. That's the principle. Serving Krishna, surrendering to Krishna is more important than material so-called rules and regulations. I hope you understand. One Mataji on this side.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, in the purport it was mentioned that Dhritarashtra was not an ordinary person but an associate of the Lord. And also in the first canto, if I remember correctly, we see that Vidura was upset when Dhritarashtra left his body because he merged into the Supreme Brahman and could not experience the pleasure of devotional service. So the question is, if he was an associate of the Lord, if he was exposed to the personality of Godhead, why devotional service was not, he did not perform devotional service?
That's the supreme will of the Lord, because devotional service is not devotional service is not like achiever's mode. You go and achieve it. It's something there and you just go and achieve it. It's something awarded to you. It's a benediction to you. It's the Lord's will. Finally, they are all the eternal characters in the pastimes of the Lord, and the Lord decides, because they are close associates, the Lord decides for them, how they will all go back. It is, we may see only one point of it, but finally they are all the associates of Lord, and every time when this kind of pastimes are performed, all these associates in different form appear in those pastimes and they perform different roles. So it's again the divine arrangement of the Lord. Two things are there. The devotional service part, which is not like, it's not like I have to achieve it, I can get it. It's awarded by the Lord. At the same time, we have to also understand that everything that happens with these associates is by the will of the Lord. Because it's, they are playing a part in that entire drama which the Lord has orchestrated for us to learn something.
Hare Krishna. Of course, just wanted to check with you only. It also mentions that he is an eternal associate of the Lord. It mentions that, but he is an associate of the Supreme Lord. But there is also a difference between being an associate of the Lord and a pure devotee.
Yes. Because
even so many were in the material world when Krishna was there, they didn't accept him. So there, even the Supreme Lord, when he is there, is not been accepted. So that's the situation of the living entity in the horrible material world. But then the Dhritarashtra doesn't come in the category of a pure devotee. That's mentioned in Prabhupada. I don't exactly remember, but if you revert the purport in the first canto when he leaves his body, there Srila Prabhupada writes, I have to refer that he doesn't get pure devotional service, but definitely gets elevated. So even in the devotional line, there are different levels, which is a little deeper subject, which needs more detailed discussion. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay. ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल.